dropped on us, we would turn the world into a pile of rubble.
You sound stupid as fuck. See, that's a cracker.
No, he's right.
Only a cracker would say crackers believing in mutually assured.
Only a cracker would say, after I'm dead, I'm gonna come back to life and I'm gonna kill everybody else.
Fixing the argument, America has significant first strike capabilities, which Iran and Russia do not have.
I'm from where the biggest military bases at. I literally used to build the United States guns, and I'm here to tell you, some motherfuckers that if, and I'm not saying I hope this shit happen because I hope it don't, but if it do, I'm just telling you straight up, you fucked.
And where do you get
someone working using
the world has supersonic missiles now.
We would be obligated to respond.
At all.
You talking about how the fuck you gonna respond when they gonna blow the fucking base up? You fool.
It's a launch and response policy, dumb. We launch as soon as they launch.
Crackers is stupid. See, it's two crackers that say
we're stupid. Google it.
No, and
I don't have to Google it. I literally used to build it. I used to build the shit that you talking about, you fool.
What weapon you used to build?
What I'm trying to tell you.
What weapon did you use to build?
Y'all both asking me questions at the same time. So what I'm trying to tell you,
what
dumb
weapons
motherfuckers.
did you use to build?
A lot of different shit. Weapons
So which
crazy.
ones?
See, this
I'm trying to answer you.
Look, guys,
Weapons
the
crazy.
policy
All type
is
of different shit.
respond on launch.
Policy
We
is,
actively monitor launch sites across the world for nuclear powers, and as soon as we detect them launching, we...
I know you used to always being right, Cracker. But all I'm saying is, Cracker, if you dead, it ain't nobody to carry out the policy, Cracker.
The way nuclear weapons function in the United States. Your view about
bro, I used to work. I literally used to work in.
Like a guy saying,
you say you work on guns. You talking about a motherfucker?
They're completely different fucking things.
No, I used to work on nuclear aircraft carriers that got the nukes you talking about, bro.
Dude,
and I was hold on. Can I finish what I'm saying? Can I finish what I'm saying, Marshall? Can I? No, yes I did.
You were not a reactor guy.
Yes, I was. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Yes, I was. I have no reason to lie. I was 106.1 qualified. You can look this shit up. I'm not lying to you. I may sound like an ignorant but I'm not.
So you're taking your knowledge as somebody who served in a nuclear reactor room on a nuclear powered carrier as a way to say that the United States would be spotted by people and that we don't have a significant first strike capability advantage.
This is what that's. Yeah, I'm trying to tell you what I'm saying. I'm saying.
No. Do you believe
can I say what I want to say without being interrupted? I heard you, Cracker. What I'm saying is, as a mechanic that build your guns, and you don't even know how to fucking work them. What I'm telling you is, if they strike, see how the Cracker don't want to hear it? The Cracker's so proud, the Cracker's so scared, he can't
de-escalate process so we can get back to the convo?
Yeah, go ahead, bro.
Go ahead, just de-escalate. Just like
all I'm saying is to my fellow Cracker, my fellow American Cracker, is that
wait, that's not de-escalation, sir. Sir, please.
This guy works at a
all up, bro. Trust me, I don't. But anyway, all I'm saying is, bro, the way that America is set up, anybody that's from the Eastern Seaboard will tell you this. The same place where they house, where most of your military bases are at, is the same place they fucking build the shit at. And all I'm saying is, with an open border, I'm pretty sure somebody from one of these fucking countries know that. And if they bomb the goddamn mechanic shop where all the shit is at, you fuck. You ain't even gonna be able to fucking respond because the literal place where all this shit is docked at is gonna be fucking ruined. And not only is it, and not only that, this is the same place. Yes, it is. And the same place where all this shit is stationed, it happened to be the same fucking seaboard where the fucking all the fucking important people stay.
We're having a CAC convention on the Eastern Seaboard. That's just foolish to say.
Okay, bro.
Look it up. Weapons aren't the only weapons at play. The thing is, right now at play, supersonic weapons, which America is not leading in, are one of the things that everybody's looking at right now. And there's multiple of our enemies, our ops, that have them already developed. So that's the thing. It has all of our defenses.
They brag they do, but when Russia bragged they had hypersonic missiles that could do that, they were intercepted by U.S. Patriot missiles.
leading in hypersonic missiles, bro. That's the bottom line.
I did not say we were leading in
This cracker just talking. These questions.
He says we're leading in first rate capability.
He's got it down.
First strike capabilities include hypersonic missiles.
But if we're able to down said hypersonic weapon, which proves it's not hypersonic.
Cracker, you might as well learn how to pitch your tent if you survive, Cracker. You just might as well get ready
You
for
want
it.
a side of mac and cheese with your number 4 coffee.
Stick to the drive. That was alright. That was alright.
Since Meek was really one of them,
Drake destroyed
not doing it, bro.
Yeah, shout out to Meek, but Drake destroyed Meek on that race. So, like, come on, man. Like, come on.
Yo, Meek Mill is smokable. What are you talking about, man?
Every nigga.
Okay.
Everybody,
Everybody's smokable when it's Drake, right?
yes, Melly. Everybody can be rolled into a backwood. Everybody.
Simpliciter, because it really depends on what we mean by the term natural theology. Well, Demetrius Eloy wrote in his famous dogmatic work, Orthodox Dogmatics, that for the Orthodox Church there is no natural theology. And this is because we follow the teaching of St. Maximus when it comes to the Christological character of a created order. So there's a fundamental Christological element to the created order that doesn't allow us to bypass that Christology or that Trinitarian theology to do something like natural theology. So from the outset, St. Eloy notes that when we look at the natural order and when we do what we might call natural contemplation, the content of the natural order and natural contemplation is the same as the content of Scripture. And in Orthodox theology, in many places, I will show, that is actually the doctrine of the Logia. So, although it might sound weird to those that aren't familiar with this doctrine, St. Maximus's doctrine, which is really a logically consistent position of following through many centuries and councils in terms of working out their Christology, Maximus is really the summation of this doctrine of the Logia, and it really is the embodiment of Christ, we could say, in the created order, which really comes to fruition after the resurrection and in anticipation of the eschaton. Other Orthodox theologians, for example, continue this tradition to point out that there's so many problems with the Hellenic idea of natural theology that really undergoes what we might say is a metamorphosis. Father Florovsky in his essay, Revelation, Faith, and Philosophy, St. Joseph Popovich in his chapter in Orthodox Faith Alive in Christ on the epistemology of Isaac the Syrian, notes that this is also in St. Isaac the Syrian an epistemology of the Logi. And so the fundamental issue here is that, as he notes and as Florovsky points out, there's a transformation of the terms and the words that the Hellenic philosophers use. The great convert to Orthodoxy, Yaroslav Pelikan, wrote an excellent book that also touches on this topic that I recommend in more detail, where he talks about the metamorphosis of natural theology in the Cappadocians. Of course, the Cappadocians are going to play a huge role in what I'm going to try to get to today. So in other words, what we call the theology of nature or theologizing or reasoning about the natural world is not itself a problem. It's rather the reference of these things. It's rather the grounding of these things in an epistemological sense. And so St. Joseph Popovich goes into a great deal to explain that Orthodox theology is unique. And it's unique precisely because it's a different metaphysic, a different anthropology, namely centered around the doctrine of the nous. In Roman Catholic theology, to my knowledge, I don't know of any place where there's an explicit acknowledgement of the doctrine of the nous or the heart of man, which is the primary organ or faculty for knowing God. The doctrine of the nous will play a central role in all Orthodox theologians that I'm aware of, in terms of how we would exegete texts like Romans 1 or Psalm 19, which are typically used as texts to prove natural theology in a Thomistic sense. In this context, most Orthodox writers that discuss or exegete the passages, they will actually refer to this in a Christological way or in a reference to the energies of Christ. So in other words, the heavens declare the glory of God. The glory of God is actually not a creature. In fact, it is an energy that the saints themselves perceive and participate in. The world displays, for example, according to Romans 1, the divine dunamis. The dunamis in the Greek, if you would look to, for example, the famous book by scholar Mikhail Barnes. Barnes notes in The Power of God in quite a bit of detail that the theology of dunamis in the Cappadocians, and in particular in St. Mary of Nazianzus, is fundamentally about the potentia that God has that he doesn't always necessarily actualize. In other words, God does not have to create, for example, all the possible worlds. He only actualized this world, and he did that on the basis of the logi that he willed to actualize. There's a great paper by Seraphim Hamilton in our Discord on Rule of Faith that I will post below as well about this position and issue with regard to the actualized logi. So in other words, Barnes notes that what is shown in the created order does not exercise, God does not exercise every power necessarily. Another example of this would be when the Son becomes incarnate. There's a kenosis that occurs, right, according to St. Paul in the Philippians. And in this kenosis, the Son becomes a baby, right? He doesn't destroy the world at the same time, for example, as he walks on water. And what this shows us is that we can't have a strict identification thesis doctrine of actus purus, because it would be then impossible for Christ to undergo a kenotic state, enter into a mode of being proper to one hypostasis coming into time and space, in a unique mode that the other two hypostases don't do. So in other words, natural theology run away would pose a problem in terms of its actus purus presuppositions in regard to the doctrine of the incarnation. For example, in Ed Feser's book, Five Proofs, Feser literally says in the chapter on the Neoplatonic proof that if this is the case, and he thinks it is a good argument for God, supposedly, then this God cannot enter into time and space because that would be to undergo change for that God, for that essence, right? But did Dr. Feser not think about the possibility of how that might affect or negate or preclude the doctrine of the incarnation, whereby one hypostasis does enter into the mode of being in time and space? For example, again, the action of creating the world by Christ is distinct from the action of walking on water. And neither of those actions is the same as destroying the world with the conflagration. So all of these things I think are important to keep in mind. There's an essay that I will recommend, a paper by Dr. Bradshaw, where Dr. Bradshaw goes into quite a bit of exegesis in the Old and New Testament about this issue of the energeia, and then being really distinct in multiple scriptural passages. So the energies doctrine is not grounded in the Cappadocians or in Alamos. It's actually grounded in the New Testament, Old Testament theology itself, particularly Paul's epistle where he talks about the energeia. Church position, as I've heard it outlined in multiple debates, including with Ben Watkins, is what I would classify, not with the intention of mischaracterizing him, he can freely correct me at any point if he thinks I've misread him, is something akin to a classical foundationalist approach. And in the classical foundationalist approach, especially in the Mount Delaunay debate, we see a basic empiricist narrative that the classical Aristotelian type arguments for change, act, potency. The problem here is that these all contain tremendous metaphysical baggage. God just is unlimited being himself, he says. God is not composed. God is not in time and space. The observations of the world around us through just observing sense data then can lead us to this supposed conclusions about this deity. He even says this is a first actualizer with no potentia, etc. And this has, of course, been subject to many examples of critique in the academic literature, particularly regarding the not just modal collapse, but also what's called the identity thesis. Radagawitz's famous PhD thesis on this goes into great detail to show that, in fact, Roman Catholic doctrine of identity thesis is really part and parcel, especially in Aquinas, what we see in Eunomius. And in fact, Basil's arguments against Eunomius are quite the contrary to what we might expect, right? Basil does not accept the Eunomian or Neoplatonic definition of simplicity, which underlies the very doctrine that I've heard Trent outline. Now, the eternal actualizer point is actually ridiculed by St. Basil in Hexameron 2, where Basil said that if it's the case that God is an eternal actualizer, then it stands to reason, like Aristotle thought, that there's also an eternal world that he actualizes. For him to have any meaning as eternal actualizer requires an eternal other than himself for him to perpetually move and actualize. This, in fact, is why Basil himself has given up the project of using this line of causal chains or reasoning back to a first cause as if you can prove or demonstrate creation as a specific ex nihilo action. In fact, Basil just submits and says we can't do that. It doesn't work. In fact, the problem at root here really isn't about that. It's about the meaning of the term usage of the classical theistic attributes. The problem is outlined in the paper that I would recommend, Dr. Garaby's paper, which goes into great detail in demonstrating logically and formally the actual fallacies involved in theistic, in the idea of a generic theism, the idea that natural theology can actually arise to on the basis of theory-neutral predicates, theory-neutral attributes, the omniscience, omnipresence, eternality, freedom, goodness, creator status, sustaining status, and personal status of this deity, as well as, according to, for example, Swinburne, as a typical Thomist, that this deity is also deserves reverence and worship. This deity also is the same in all the monotheistic religions because they have similar predicates. This is, of course, a fallacy. The fact that these different religious systems have similar predicates for the deity, it does not follow logically that they are referring to the same deity. But this is, in fact, what underlies all natural theological argumentation about the Abrahamic monotheistic faiths. And in fact, I've heard Trent argue many times that the Abrahamic or monotheistic religion is a common core generic type of theism that we see in these authors. For example, it doesn't work to say that all the predicates are referring to the same referent merely because they have different systems, because I can give you multiple examples, such as the quantifier ship fallacy, where, for example, if we look at the fact that because monotheistic religions all claim to believe in one God, it does not follow logically that they believe in or refer to the same God. Again, that is the quantifier ship fallacy. We can think of examples like every girl loves one boy, therefore every girl loves the same boy. Or every person is born of a woman, therefore every person is born of the same woman. It's an obvious fallacy that doesn't logically follow. This also relates to the linguistic philosophy or logic is called the non-substitutivity of identicals in linguistic intentional context, right? So in other words, we can't just substitute words as if they mean the same thing because even if they might refer to the same thing. So for example, we could think of an example where I listen to you, I'm thinking of a man who, a famous Greek, a lover and promoter of philosophy, a very wealthy patrician,